My name's Neil, and here at Pepperdash, I help develop products including essentials. In today's two-part video, I'm going to be walking you through how to create your own plugin. Now, if you haven't seen the previous videos we've released about plugins, please go back and check them out. But to sum up, the reason you might want to create your own plugins is it's the easiest way to add your own logic to an essentials program without actually having to modify essentials. And today, we're going to walk you through how to create a mock occupancy detector device. Now, this is a really simple example so that it makes it easy for us to demonstrate the steps that you need to take to create your own plugin, but it also has a practical application. You might come across a situation where you need to use occupancy detectors in the real world, but they're a real pain in the butt to test because they're almost never installed when you show up to deploy the system, or if they are, it's really hard to trigger them. So what we're going to do here is we're going to write a plugin that allows you to really easily fake an occupancy detector as if it were a real occupancy detector. And please, if you want to, break open Visual Studio and follow along with me and do it for yourself. In this video, part 1, we'll discuss the plugin template repo and renaming the solution in Namespace. Okay, so let's take a look at how you can take our Essentials plugin template repo and fork it into your personal space and then use it to make your own plugins from. So if you look inside the Pepperdash organization here in GitHub, there is this repo called Essentials plugin template. So I'm going to click on this. And once it loads up, there's a couple of options here. So if I wanted to create a template in the Pepperdash namespace and I had permission to do so, I could click use this template. But what I'm actually going to do is fork this into my personal space. So this is going to get forked into my own copy. So you can see here, we're going to copy this into Endoran, which is my personal space. And now you can see in the top left here, it's showing that it's inside my space, and this is the Essentials plugin template, and that it is a template repository. So template repository means you use it as a starting point for other new repositories. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to click the use this template button, and this is going to create a new repository. And in this case, I am going to make it public. And I'm going to call it mock occupancy detector. And so this is going to make a new repository. And in this case, I'm not going to include all branches. I'm just going to grab the main branch. But if you wanted to include all the branches in the template, you could do so by checking this include all branches button. So now this is going to generate a new repository that uses the template as the starting point. And the important part about using the template as the starting point is that the template has all of the basics we need for an Essentials plugin. So we've got a little README here that can be modified. We've got, the git ignore file we suggest. We've got a license file. In this case, this is an MIT license. You don't have to make yours open source, but it's already provided if you do want to. And mainly inside this PDT Essentials plugin template.epi folder, we've got all the base stuff you need. So next up, I'll show you how to start customizing this to make it actually make sense for your application. Now we have our new repository started based off the template. And what I'm going to look at right here is how to clone this and then how to rename the default folder and file names to something more meaningful. So what I would recommend is you click the little code button here. I use GitHub Desktop. You can download that quite easily. Or if you use something else, SourceTree, or you just want to use the Git CLI, you can just copy the Git link here. But I use GitHub Desktop, so I have already cloned this repository to a local folder on my machine. And so let's go take a look at what it looks at, or what it looks like. So what we're going to do here is I'm just going to rename this folder to mock essentials detector. I like to use the EPI extension, which stands for Essentials Plugin. It's not required, but it makes it a little easier for me to identify that this is an Essentials plugin. And then all I'm going to do here is I am going to actually open up the solution file in Visual Studio, and I'm going to actually rename it from there. First thing I'm going to do is right-click on the solution in the Solution Explorer and rename it. And I'm going to call it Mock Occupancy Detector. And I'm just going to rename a couple of these as well. All right, so that basically takes care of several of these. Now you can see it's going to rename the associated CSproj file and the CSproj user file. So that gets us looking a little bit more like it's our files and not the default files that get pulled in the template. And from here, now we can look at renaming some of these files. So basically, I'm just going to replace wherever it says Essentials Plugin Template with Mock Occupancy Detector. And the last one here. You'd think that I would have copied and pasted this, but developers like to type just to prove that we can. All right, so I've renamed all the files now. And that really gets us pretty close to where we want to be. The only thing else I'm going to really look at here is I'm going to open up one of these files and I'm going to rename the namespace. So I'm just going to F2 on this namespace and rename it to Mock Occupancy Detector. And that's going to rename all the instances of it. And away we go. So now this is basically sanitized this repository of pretty much any of the references to the template. And that should get us pretty close to where we want to be. Oh, I see that my window was not actually fully visible there. So yeah, we've now effectively renamed the solution in namespace. And the example classes, actually this is the other thing I want to do. So I am going to do a Control H to do a global, find and replace. It was hiding down there. And I'm going to replace this with Mock Occupancy Detector. Replace that one. And I'm not going to just do a replace all here blindly. Yeah, this is a bit of an interesting one. This namespace is gone. So I am going to replace that. And again, here I'm going to get rid of the suffix and the prefix and just replace that. And then find the next one. So I'm going to rename that guy and all instances of it. And then the same here, I'm going to rename this class. Instead of being Essentials Plugin Factory, we're going to call it Mock Occupancy Detector Plugin Factory. And I believe this should be the last one. And there we go. Okay, so I should be able to build this now. We might have a couple of errors left to deal with. Find out shortly. Yep. We're missing the reference. In our references here. Let's just double check that this is pointing in the right place. Yes. I need to do NuGet. And now would be a really good time for us to compile and, maybe upload this plugin and test, except that there's one really important thing we have left to do. Because if we go look over in our references folder here, what we might notice, it's not currently showing it, but it may show it on your screen if you're following along, is that these references are missing. So what we need to do, if we go look in the root folder of our repository here, you'll see that there's this packages.config file. Now, this file is what we will use with a tool called NuGet. Now, NuGet, if we go look here in our repository, the README that comes with the template includes some instructions about installing the dependencies. And this is telling us that the essentials libraries are required and that we get them via NuGet. So if you don't already have NuGet installed and added to your path, you can follow this link here to nuget.org and it'll give you instructions on how to install NuGet. I already have NuGet installed, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this command here from the README. I'm going to make sure I get all of it. And in our command prompt, paste it. Hit enter, and what this is going to do is it's going to go out to the NuGet registry, and it's going to go get the package that is right now Essentials version 1.6.2, which is the version specified in the packages.config file. So now, if we go look in our repository, we now have a packages folder, and inside this packages folder, what we'll find, if my computer wants to catch up anytime soon, is a Pepper-Dash Essentials folder. And inside the Pepper-Dash Essentials folder, we have a library folder. And inside the library folder, what we'll find is two folders for different versions of .NET. In this case, what we're concerned with is .NET 3.5 because we're still working with 3 Series and Visual Studio 2008. And inside the .NET 3.5 folder, we will find all of the necessary DLLs that your plugin may rely on in order to operate with Essentials. So it's a very important step to remember when you have cloned your or created your new repository and cloned it. You need to perform this locally on your machine once. And this will bring down all of the necessary DLLs to your working copy folder so that now, when we go back to Visual Studio, I can hit F6 and build this library, and we should have our plugin all ready to go. So the bottom line here is do not forget the step of installing the NuGet dependencies. And there we go, build succeeded. So now we are ready to load this and try it out. Thanks for following along so far. Now that we have our local repository all set up to make our own plugin, next up we'll show you how you can actually write some code to make the plugin do something. Pick up with us in part 2 of the video.